Alright guys, Papa Pepper here once again, and today I'm going to be doing an interview to introduce you guys to somebody who you may or may not already know. I'm Papa Pepper, and I'm here with Bluer Than Green today.
How everybody doing?
And so Bluer Than Green, what's that even mean? What kind of a username is that?
Well, it stands for Building Legacies Utilizing Earth's Resources. And it's a play on the concept of the green movement and how the green movement is okay with protecting the earth, but it has nothing to do with human beings or the health and wealth and the prosperity of human beings on the planet.
They're kind of just a plague though, aren't they?
Yeah, according to the quote-unquote green movement, yeah. And I'm all for protecting the earth. I'm all for being a good steward of the resources that we've been entrusted with, but I'm not all about treating humans as if we're part of the problem when we're actually part of the solution. We were given this planet as part of this planet to take dominion of it, to mold it and shape it for the good of mankind, for the good of the animals, for the good of the planet itself, to make it fruitful and make it multiply. And so that's where Bluer comes from. It's building legacies, utilizing Earth's resources, because what we do here today, what we do here tomorrow, it's not just for us, it's for future generations. It's for my children, it's for my grandchildren, it's for neighbors' children, neighbors' grandchildren, for people that I will never meet. There's an ancient Chinese proverb, and you probably have shared it on Steemit, and it says that nation grows, what was it, wise? Help me out.
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
About a nation grows wise. This is probably going to mess this up. Can you pause and edit this?
No.
Oh, this is live?
Yeah, it's one take.
Oh man, this is terrible. Anyways, let me think about it and we'll come back to it.
Sure.
It has to do with being great by planting the trees
that you'll never eat from?
That you'll never eat from, yeah. Something like that. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. It's been one of those days.
What's an example that you could just kind of give somebody? Because I agree, whatever we do here is either going to negatively or positively, often it's not neutral, affect things for generations to come potentially. So what's one example of a way that you would be Bluer and build a legacy utilizing the Earth's resources?
Well, for example, the land around me right now, behind me in the background. This is my land that I was blessed with, transplanting myself from Wisconsin down here to Arkansas, here in the Ozarks. I'm going to take the trees. I'm going to clear the land of the trees and the vines and the poison ivy and the thistles and the briars that do not produce something that is beneficial for myself or the plants or the animals or the land. And I'm going to replace it with trees and vines and bushes and other things that will be beneficial, that will be able to produce a crop, produce a yield, that will be able to feed animals, be able to feed my family, feed other people's families, for not just my today, but for future generations. We're talking food forests, we're talking whole permaculture systems that will be able to be almost self-sustaining by the time it all gets implemented and put into place, where there will be very little hands-on interaction anymore that will be needed, just little maintenance here and there, but overall it's going to be a self-contained system that is self-sustaining and producing no waste and no pollution, but yet edible, usable, renewable, sustainable resources.
Because that's, this is pretty hands-off woods right now, but what you'll see is these unfriendly relationships where you have a tree and all of a sudden you have poison ivy vines eventually overtake it, the tree dies, and then the poison ivy perishes too, as it has no support system anymore and stuff like that, where if you have things that can work in cahoots with one another in a companion relationship, then it benefits both of the plants and the people around it and the animals, as you said. So you mentioned kind of transplanting yourself from Wisconsin all the way down to the Ozarks, Arkansas. What kind of person would do that?
A crazy one. Really. It was a leap of faith. We were in Wisconsin, and we just felt that something wasn't quite right, that I was working hard and hardly getting anywhere in my life. And it wasn't for lack of effort, it wasn't for lack of intelligence. My wife and I, it was all for the good here on STEAMIT as well. We had a vision given to us by God to disciple our children and raise them in such a way that they would understand their unique role here on this earth and in relation to the plants and the animals around them and the other people that God would bring into our lives, and how that all works together, and where we were at living in Wisconsin with the high property taxes, with the high regulation. It was almost impossible to accomplish that, and accomplish that being me being able to be home with my family, not working a wage slave job, not working self-employed, which is a glorified wage slave job. It pays better, you're your own boss, so to speak, but in order to make it work, you have to put in 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Which is not conducive to being home and discipling your children.
Right, not if you want to be a husband or a father.
No, and there's got to be a better way, and that's what was going through our minds as we prayerfully considered what we should do. What's the better way? And the whole idea of homesteading came to us, that we all need to eat, and we all need to live somewhere, and
life's not really much more complicated than that.
It's actually quite simple.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Drink something every couple days.
So why do we go to work? Why do we leave our families and go to work somewhere else, building some widget or producing some product or even building a house for somebody else? You know, we do it in order to make money, to then spend that money on a roof over our head and food on our table. If we can grow it ourselves and build it ourselves, we cut out the middlemen, and we're home, investing that same time that we would have spent somewhere else with our children, with our spouses, with our neighbors, you know, growing and learning together the way I believe it was intended to be all along. Instead of breaking families up and separating them, dividing them through age segregation, through work segregation, bring the families back together and have them work together, have them play together, have them learn how to grow their own food, to do animal husbandry, to keep and tend the animals on the property that work in conjunction with the plants, and do that all together. It sounds idealistic, but it's not easy. I found out through trial and error that I have a lot of growth to do as a husband and a father. It's easy to leave for 60, 70 hours a week, to spend my energy and spend my youth somewhere else just to make a little bit of green, to then go put it in a bank and buy the things that they need in order to live. But living is not the same thing as prospering and thriving.
Too many people get caught up in making a living. They don't have a life.
Yeah.
And they certainly don't have a family life to the degree where even they want. But it's easier to leave. It's easier to not run away, but just kind of go somewhere else, do something real simple. You deal with whoever your coworkers are, and you're not there for even just the growth as a husband or as a father that comes from interacting with your children. So what has your time on STEAMIT been like? When did you first hear about STEAMIT, that type of stuff?
I heard about STEAMIT last summer, a little over a year ago, from Papa Pepper, and at first I was very skeptical. I was looking at it and wanting to blog and wanting to do podcasts and things like that for quite a few years as a way to disseminate information and the things I was learning in my journey and experience to hopefully be helpful to those around me as they go through the same thing. I was a little bit skeptical. So I'm like, how does this work? I mean, where does the money come from? It took me a while to wrap my mind around it, and as I began to wrap my mind around it, just I would say March, February of this past year, the more excited I became. And a lot of that had to do with you and I working together, beginning of the grass cutting season, to see you diligently putting the time and energy and effort into creating quality posts and documenting what you're doing. to see the fruit of that in your life, and then to see, have the time myself and have that inspiration, to have that accountability to actually make posts. Unfortunately, as you were able to be home and I was still out there cutting grass, my motivation and my inspiration waned a lot, and that's because you were no longer as actively involved in my life, or put it the other way, I wasn't actively involved in your life.
Right.
And that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's not always the same path for everybody, but the ideal, the goal, is for me to be doing exactly what you're doing.
And for a long time, they were even cutting lawns. I mean, one of us would drive, one of us would be working on post, and we would do that all day. I mean, it would be up from, I don't know,
5 in the morning.
5 in the morning till, usually he'd crash out about midnight or 1. I'd stay up a little longer, still working on stuff.
He's crazy. I'm older, and I've wasted my energy on sports and other foolish things in my youth, so my body needs a little more energy, a little more fuel to keep on going. But this guy's crazy. He can go with hardly any sleep. It's actually quite amazing. So, yeah.
So moving forward, you're gonna be more inspired and be more.
Yes.
He's got a lot of posts started. He's got a lot of crazy
I have a lot of
content.
stuff. Yes.
You should meet his chicken Lazarus. You should check out some of the other stuff.
Yeah. I have anywhere from 50 to 100 posts started. I've had series I've been planning. The summer months got a little away from me, a little crazy. In between other obligations, back up in Wisconsin, down here, building my homestead, building a cabin right now, trying to just build infrastructure for the animals to make sure they're being properly taken care of, starting our first garden down here in Arkansas. Yeah, so it's been crazy busy, but fortunately, as you can see behind us, it's not blazing hot right now. It's actually raining. You can't tell that. Maybe you can from the video, but the weather's cool. The grass is not growing anymore, and the cutting season's almost over, and I can focus my energy full time on building my homestead, and then also spending daily time on Steam It, putting out quality content just like Papa Pepper does.
All right, because I know one thing that, as he said, he comes from a background of years of this desire to have an outlet for the things he's learning, for the stuff he's doing. He wants to podcast, he wants to blog, and I'm like, that was never really a goal of mine before. But Steam It came along, I kind of figured some stuff out. I'm like, man, this is where it's at. So I was like, why not take these desires and these passions and these dreams of yours and do it this way, where you can get potentially an immediate return on your investment, where normally you'd have to spend quite a bit of time with the podcast or a blog before you had any kind of revenue income. Yep. Unless you're famous and nobody knows this guy. You know what I mean?
I'm a nobody.
So just like I was, right? Now a few people on Steam It.
Now you're infamous.
Yeah. So one thing we're thinking about too is moving forward is doing a podcast together and doing some stuff like that. So that's one thing to keep your eyes open for. And guys, that's just a little taste of Bluer Than Green. Some of you may have remembered, I did a series on being bluer, and kind of a lot of the things that I've learned and applied in my life has been stuff I've gleaned from him. And hopefully you can continue to put some stuff out there. You guys can learn some stuff from him too. And as he mentioned earlier, he's bluer than green. His wife is all for the good. If you ever seen the Homesteaders Unite logo on Steam It, she came up with that. She's not quite as active at the moment either, but check out their profiles. They've put out some quality stuff in the past, and hopefully as we move forward, they'll continue to do the same.
And my closing words is, a nation grows great when men plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. That's the proverb. Thanks for having me.
Papa out.